Hey guys, Maris at kitchentablestamper.com. Today I want to run you through this quick, cute thank you note. This thank you note is inspired by my top 10 list. I have a top 10 items that are retiring from our 2016-2017 catalog, things that I'm very sad to see leave and I think you can't live without. So if you're interested in checking out that list, there's a link directly below, and there will also be a link for the project sheet for this card with measurements, full color photo, and a supply list. So I was inspired to create this card by my top 10 retiring list, and the two items that are on that list are the writing notes background. I'm really gonna miss this. This is a versatile background. It can be anything. It just stripes, notebook paper, put all your sentiments in there. It's a great background and I'm really gonna miss it when it's gone. Also, endless thanks. This stamp set is just so versatile. There's so many mix and match sentiments. This little banner's adorable. The flowers, you can do all kinds of wreaths and flower sprays and little sneezes like this. So I'm really gonna miss those. I've also used my layering circles framelits for this project. I'm using these two little dies. The scallop is about 1.5 inches and the coordinating circle. My Stampin' pads for this project are So Saffron, Soft Sky, Wild Wasabi, Calypso Coral, and Smoky Slate. I've got some jewel basic rhinestones here. And for my consumable supplies, I have 2 half sheets of cardstock. One's Whisper White and one is Soft Sky. The Soft Sky half sheet, 8.5 by 5.5, is scored at 4 1/4. So we'll fold that up in half. And let's do some stamping here. We're gonna start with our writing notes background. So we'll need some Soft Sky, and from my many marvelous markers, I've got a real red Stampin' Write. I'm going to take my background and I'm not attaching it to any block, I'm just setting it on the table here, and I'm gonna very lightly ink up the stamp. I'm tapping very lightly and I'm gonna go over it multiple times because I wanna keep the ink out of the spaces in between the lines. It's very easy to pick that up. So we're just going to go over it multiple times and be very gentle. Then while our ink is wet, we're gonna move kind of quickly through this process. I've got my Stampin' Write marker, the brush tip, and we're going to just color in those red lines along the margin of our notebook paper. We're going right over the Soft Sky. It's not gonna hurt your marker. But you wanna cover it well enough so that your lines look red and not purple from the red and blue makes purple mix. Okay, so we've got our notebook paper all inked up. Let's press that half sheet of Whisper White. And we're just going to burnish so that the image transfers. We want to press very lightly so that we don't pick up any ink that's in between the lines. Okay, once you've burnished it everywhere and picked up the design, we're gonna get our paper trimmer in here. All right, now we wanna cut this notebook paper down to 4 inches by 5 1/4. So the first thing I'm going to do here is cut off this edge right here. So I wanna start on the edge with the margin because we wanna preserve as much of that margin as possible. Just take the very edge off so that we've got that line. Then we'll turn 90 degrees so that the top is up, and we're gonna cut off the paper at 4 inches. Now, the next step, we're gonna cut off this top line here. And we're just barely gonna trim that off. We wanna keep as much of that top margin as possible. Flip it 180 degrees and then cut down to 5 1/4. All right, so there's our little notebook sheet. Now we're going to need a 1/4 inch punch, and there is not one in the current Stampin' Up! Catalog, but there is one on the clearance rack. So if you're going to shop the retirement sale, grab a 1/4 inch hole punch off the clearance rack if you don't already have one. We're going to punch top and bottom, and then one in the middle. And I'm just judging, I want about the same distance from my margin line. There's our little notebook paper. Isn't that cute? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna miss this stamp so much. All right, then our card base and our Calypso coral layer. Set those aside for a minute. We need to do our stamping. And in this piece that's left over, you only need about 2.5 inches of it, but this is what's left over, so that's where we're gonna do our stamping. Let me get my Stampin' Pierce mat and some ink pads. Okay, so I have my Smoky Slate, Calypso Coral, and so Saffron open up here. And the first thing we want to do is stamp this little thank you greeting where we can trim it out with a circle. So we'll cut that out with a circle die. Then we need 4 Calypso Coral flowers. Now there is not a die set for these, so I am going to fussy cut them and layer them over the paper because I don't want the index or the paper lines, the rules, to show through my flowers. If you look at the leaf that's stamped directly on the notebook paper, you can see the lines through those things that are stamped right on. So I want to layer those over, and then I'm also going to stamp my little So Saffron flowers because I want to give those some dimension. So we're going to stamp our flowers and fussy cut them. I've got my 4 Calypso Coral, and then I want 4 So Saffron blooms. I'm going to get my snips here and cut these out. I'm also going to die cut this with that circle die that I showed you, and then I'll cut back in when we're done. Okay, so I've cut out all of my little flowers. They're ready to go, and I've die cut my sentiment. Let's wrap up this card. I'm going to get a little bit of snail adhesive, and I'm going to adhere my thank you sentiment to the scallop, and that gives me a good idea for placement where I'm going to put everything. So drop in your sentiment, and then you can drop in the little flowers. Once the flowers are dropped in, it'll be easy to decide where to stamp the leaves and the hearts. All right, I think I like that layout there. I think I might bring these guys in a little so I can bring that one in. Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna get my Wild Wasabi and my Pool Party. We'll do some more stamping. I've put my flowers down where I want them, but they're not glued. It'll give me a good idea for placement for my leaves. I've got the little leaf here on a block and some Wild Wasabi. So I am going to now, directly on the notebook paper, I'm gonna go ahead and stamp in a bunch of leaves. Okay, I'm happy with the placement of my leaves. Now I've got the tiny little heart from Endless Thanks, and I'm going to stamp one of those above my thank you. And then I'm going to add 2 more so that they look like they're kind of floating up and away. Now, just time for some adhesive. Okay, it's time for one of my favorite tricks here. I've got my spongy foam mat from the die brush. This is also on the retirement sale. It's $7 right now. It's coming back in the next catalog for $12.50. It's on my top 10 products, things that I can't live without. I'm sad that they're retiring. They're coming up with a new configuration, and the die brush is coming back more expensive. The die brush mat is thicker and softer and spongier than the Stampin' Pierce mat. The Stampin' Pierce is dense with very little give. They're very different and they do different purposes. So I love both of them and can't live without mine. I'm gonna take with a little So Saffron flowers that I stamped in fussy cut, and I'm just gonna take the stylus from my Simply Score tool and give them a little shape. Now they're little cup shaped flowers. I'll do that to all 4, and then we'll adhere them with a little bit of glue. Now we need a little dimensionals and multi-purpose liquid glue to wrap up this card. I'm going to put a little multi-purpose liquid glue on the back of each of these Calypso coral flowers and glue them right down. On the back of each of these little cupped flowers, we'll just add a little dot of glue. For our dimensionals, we're going to put a couple on the back of this sentiment. Before I glue it down to the card base, I want to take my bone folder and I'm going to just roll the corners, top right and bottom left, real gently on the bottom left. We don't want to tear where we've got the hole in the notebook paper. You don't want to put the snail adhesive to the extreme right or left where you curled. You want that to keep dimensional. And you might have to perk up your little flowers. Maybe they should have been the last step. That's why my other ones got kind of flat. But you can give them a little perk up. And then I am going to put this on the card with a little tilt. All right, the final step is to embellish them with the tiniest little rhinestone gems. So I've got these here. Uh-oh, I shot it. Okay. Right in the center of those little So Saffron flowers. Okay, there it is. There's our endless thanks and writing notes background thank you note. If you've got any questions about Stampin' Up, about the retirement sale, about the new 2017-2018 catalog, email me, Marissa@kitchentablestamper.com. Thanks for watching.